You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again. Today, we have another amazing show for you. We're going to talk to Dr. Pepper, not the Dr. Pepper you drink, but the Dr. Pepper Bonay-Martin. She is the author of amazing book that we're going to be discussing tonight. We're going to learn all about her. The title of her book is I'm Married, but I Feel Like I'm Single. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you, Dr. Pepper Martin, for being on the show tonight. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing well, Shamaya, and I'm so appreciative to be here with you.
And you're not just an author. You're also a trauma specialist, and you can speak on how COVID has affected youth and adults. And you also are a pastor of Destiny House Christian Center on Long Island, New York. And you also are host of a pep talk show. So you're very busy, just like all the amazing entrepreneurs and business owners out there. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know I gave a little teaser, but take us back. How did you get into everything that you're involved with today?
Well, first of all, thank you again. And I would say that my own life has been extraordinarily eclectic since childhood, being filled with some of the best, most engaging, most fun and illuminating moments, and some of the most horrific and emotionally crushing moments. I am a victim of sexual abuse as early as 5 years old. And I suffered internally. I never told anyone, including my mom, until right before, about a month before I was about to be married the first time. And in encountering that and actually getting to the moment of having the courage to talk about it and living through the pain of recovery, among having a litany of other things, rejected by my dad, and just a litany of emotional pain. But at the same time, within the household that I was reared in, I also had a lot of love. By the time I got to college, I went to St. John's University, graduated. I continued on and married after college. And my first husband and I, we were married for almost 20 years. However, 10 years of that relationship was just unbelievably devastating. The first half of our marriage was incredible, and the last half was terrible. And I can't really even pinpoint if there was a build-up point. For me, it felt like it was a sudden fall off of the cliff. And so it was a very drastic downward motion. And as a result of going through all of the preliminary emotional upheaval that I had in encountering the ongoing abuse, my situation with my father, and that, among a litany of other things, I realize now, looking back, that the negativity in my life was just as helpful as the positivity that I've had to shape who I have become. And so I understand trauma. I'm studying it. I'm going for my second doctorate degree. I have a doctorate in divinity. I'm going for my second doctorate now. I'll be finished by the beginning of 2024. And I am studying educational leadership, where my focus is on being a trauma specialist. And I understand how trauma impedes progress and it also impedes certain aspects of our life. And so with all of that, I have embraced everything to turn it around and to let it work out for my good, to blaze a path to now becoming a person that can utilize my struggle to help someone else get through theirs.
Once again, talking to Dr. Pepper Bonay-Martin, and I can see that you are a person of faith. And with that being your background as well, how has faith kept you motivated to overcome all these different chapters in your life of, if you will, dark times?
Absolutely. If it wasn't for God, I don't think I'd be alive. If it wasn't for the power of the Lord and the fellowship of his people, having an outlet, the church that I grew up in was phenomenal at the time. We had a very strong leadership, spiritual leadership that was filled with integrity. I thank God that that the church that I served in was not filled with people that participated in harming and doing damage to the body of Christ. My childhood experience in the household of faith was incredible. We had a tremendous youth department. I had an awesome youth leader, Dr. Lynette Harris, and she herself is a pastor in Yonkers, and we are still friends. She was just incredible and made a tremendous impact on my life. And so being able to have that as an outlet, all of the different activities that was offered to young people growing up in my church in the Bronx, with all of the discussions that we were allowed to have that were honest and transparent, I believe. And then I sing. So I sang on all of the choirs. I later joined the mass choir as a teenager and a young adult Bronx Mass Choir. And so having all of those positive outlets that were faith-based and God-centered made me to understand the power of God and his love on a whole nother level that was deep, and grows deeper as I get older. And I understand that the blood of Jesus covered me, and that though things did happen, my faith in God gave me the strength to be able to survive it. And I knew that my life had purpose, even though I wasn't cognizant of specifically what the purpose was all the time. I knew I had purpose. I knew I was called. And despite my dark days, I still had hope to continue on. And I didn't always understand how to make it work. And when I didn't, I took it to prayer. And so prayer in the Lord, the fellowship with his saints, the fellowship with my friends who were also godly, where we shared a common bond, all of that together collectively with a praying mom gave me the strength to overcome.
And with that said, that leads us to the title of your book. I'm married, but I feel like I'm single. And the reason why I say that is because you have actual steps. You have 5 steps to successfully navigate a painful divorce. So for the audience, what was the core message in the book that you're giving to the reader? Obviously, navigate a painful divorce, but what was the core message that you're trying to illustrate?
One of the phrases that I coined in the book is that my marriage went from bliss to the abyss. And as spiritual leaders, both of us were ordained elders in the church. We were about to take over a church. And we literally became a public success and a private mess. And at that time, when you raised, especially in a holiness church, divorce is a taboo. Divorce is not of God. And so though I did not mean to become hypocritical in my lifestyle, in essence, that's exactly what I did. The very opposite of what I was intending to do. We were taught you don't go to therapy, you pray about everything. And so my message from my perspective as being a spiritual leader, preparing for pastoralship along with my husband, in our quest to try to really hold on, I would say if there's anybody in that position, whether it's spiritual leadership or if it's just social leadership, status quo, when you are from a family or in a community where the status quo basically is what's been bought, and you're scared to reveal and to be transparent about the truth of the depth of your life. To avoid hypocrisy, just be transparent and own your problem. And so I'm married, but I feel like I'm single is a book of truth. The core message is I was married on paper, but I felt emotionally single. We had disengaged. We were no longer intimate. I didn't see my husband at the time until Sundays. I would see him with everyone else, and we sat together in the front because we were both elders. He was the head of the men's department. I was the head of the women's department. I was preaching all over the place at different churches, and everybody knew us as the power church couple. Well, sometimes that is not healthy to portray that, especially when it's not true. And though we didn't mean to be liars, again, we were just hanging in there thinking that it would just come together. And that also isn't true. So the overall core message is when you have an elephant in the room, whether it is the destruction of your intimacy in your marriage, whether it is a tremendous financial weight, whether it is a devastating health issue and you're trying to conceal it, it is best to just come to grips with it, own it, and by facing it, that's what gives you the power to change the trajectory of your future. As long as the enemy has a stronghold over you, you really can't fix things like that. And particularly in the church, sometimes in the church, because of the culture, particularly back in the day, where things were masked, it is very difficult, very challenging to try to be transparent in that type of culture. I encourage everyone to take control over your life, continue to pray, continue to talk to the Lord, but to be honest and own the situation that is occurring. You are not giving the devil power. You, in fact, are doing the opposite by being transparent and owning that you are not where God would intend for you to be, and you are certainly not where you know you should be. So begin to deal with it. Yes, in prayer, yes, in the word, but go seek professional help if necessary, and do whatever you got to do to get to the bottom, to the root cause of the problem, and make a critical decision to get out. If it's something that you are in that's abusive, the Lord also does not want you to be battered. In my circumstances, Shemaiah, my ex-husband did not physically abuse me. I wasn't a victim of domestic violence. But unfortunately, now looking back, I was a victim of financial abuse. And I was also, I would say, vulnerable to this type of personality because of my past childhood issues as well. He had earned my complete trust, and my world began to revolve around him. And so when that world began to unravel, I unraveled internally, and I did everything that I could do to hold it together externally. And finally, the internal conflict that I was suffering took control, and I just came apart. And so when he finally came and asked me for a divorce, I didn't fight. I went through the divorce, and it was going through it where I learned the critical steps of navigating a painful divorce, but also understanding you can get through it and have success in your afterlife.
Listen to Iron Focus Radio, talking to Dr. Pepper Bonay-Martin, and about her book, I'm Married, but I Feel Like I'm Single, 5 Steps to Successfully Navigate a Painful Divorce. And something that kind of popped in my head as I'm listening to you talk about all this. And that is, I ask you this question. Do you think sometimes pain helps us to focus on what is really important in our lives? In other words, things that we ignored possibly for a long time. And sometimes pain helps us to really zero in on what it's like, do or die. Okay, I have to focus on this now and commit to it, or I just completely lose it all.
So Maya, what a powerful, thought-provoking question, and thank you for asking it. No one has ever asked me that, and I wish they had, so thank you for being the first. My answer is absolutely, unequivocally yes, while no one asks for pain. The scriptures say in Romans 8:28, now all things work together for the good to them that love God and are called according to his purpose. As I get older, as I navigated through this and navigated through so many other emotional struggles, I had garbage thrown on me by broken people. And I realized that broken people break people. And they left the garbage on me and nobody came back to take the garbage off of me. I had to fight and struggle all my life to get through. I'm brilliant in school, well educated. People told me, oh my God, you're beautiful, long hair, you're just gorgeous. Everybody thought, I grew up with a lot of jealousy from girls and people wanted to be me, but they didn't understand the internal and quiet storm that I was suffering as a result of concealing some terrible things that had happened to me. And as a result of all of that combined, I would say that I had good health, but I did not have emotional health. And it was my emotional pain, the things that I incurred that left deep scars and bruises in my heart and in my soul that was so much harder to overcome, did eventually come to a head. And my divorce helped me to focus on myself and to get to the point where I said, with the help of God, am going to take this moment and all of it at the same time and use it to get the best self that I can get out of me with the help of my Father, the Lord Jesus Christ, and become the answer to somebody else's problem. It was at that point when I realized I was going through this divorce with a man that I loved intensely. I said to myself, I will never be here again. I never said that I will never love again because thank God I have a new husband and I do. But it's a different type of experience with him. And I made a mental choice. I made up in my mind that I will never put anybody ahead of God and that I would never sacrifice the things that meant so much to me. Nobody should get your essence like that. It's not healthy. And the situation that emerged as a result was the very painful thing that got me to the awareness that I needed to get to understand that I needed to shift my thinking in order to shift my pain from hurt to purposeful to a meaningful experience, so that as God's children, we are often looking for someone to come and rescue us and to do things for us. But how about if we are servants of the Lord? God allows also wonderful things to happen to us, but also terrible things to happen to us, to balance us, to build character in us, and to get us to a point, exactly what you said, to be focused on what's important and to begin to shade the things that we are often told in life that should be important, and they really aren't. And they actually are distractors to what actually is meaningful to him and meaningful to life, and that is life in and of itself. Jesus said, I've come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. I was not living an abundant life. I was in disarray, and I was depressed, anxious. I had a low self-esteem. I had developed an eating disorder. I was a mess. I was a total mess. But thanks be to God who gives us the victory. But the victory wouldn't have been ascertained if I didn't take ownership of what happened and begin to participate in my own deliverance. So yes, it was a moment of change in my life that I now have appreciation for, where at the time I dreaded and I thought that God had abandoned me. He didn't. And he used this situation to make me into a whole new creature. And now I am coming back with great deliberation to use my personal story as a testimony to help somebody else. Because to be a true servant, whether I'm a pastor or not, whether you or anybody who's listening has a title in the church or in the secular arena or not, the title doesn't make you, but it gives you the authority and the access to really do the work. And as servants of God, our work is when we become available to become the solution. to somebody else's problem. And so now I am empowered by my pain. My pain has purpose, and I want to fulfill my purpose and be deliberate in talking about my story. It happened. I own it, but it has also become some of the best things that has built the strongest character in me. And I want a platform to utilize it to help someone else get through their depression, feelings of suicide, and to let them know that your life is worth the living just because Jesus lived.
We're listening to I'm Refocused Radio, talking to Dr. Pepper Bonay-Martin. And you mentioned something about a solution. Like God chooses you, your story, your life to be a solution to someone else's issue, problems. And I say on the show every now and then, our pain is someone else's medicine, because if we are able to survive the issue, the storm, then our experience can help somebody else navigate through that storm as well. And when you write your experience, I'm married, but I feel like I'm single, I almost feel like that can be applied to someone's dream, someone's career, just someone's life, their purpose. Like they feel like they're successful, but they feel like a failure. And
Absolutely.
pain is interesting because it hurts, but it seems to only hurt more if you ignore it.
Absolutely.
What was that like for you?
Oh, that's what took me so long to get out. Just halfway acknowledging the pain and not being realistic about how to deal with the pain. Sitting and hoping and praying and hoping and praying. But the scriptures also say faith without works is dead. And so as a result of that, the pain became more intense from not being actively engaged in doing something about it. And so I'm sitting around waiting for God, and God is sitting around waiting for me. And and as a result, my story became elongated. Looking back, I think that even that became a part of the divine will of God and is being used for a purpose. But going through it, the intensity of having daily emotional pain and not knowing that you are empowered or not feeling like you are empowered to do something about it makes it far worse. And as you said, this is a book that can speak to anybody's pain. Yes, I'm taking my marriage, my first marriage, as an example and being transparent, using my own life to help someone else who is in a relationship to overcome the pain of marriage that may be failing or has failed. But it can be applied to anything. When I first launched the book, I had someone who was a head nurse of a very large hospital in Connecticut who came to me with tears in her eyes, saying how my book helped her deal with the sudden sickness of her husband, who suddenly lost his ability to walk. And she was married, but she felt like she was single because of the physical disparity of her spouse. And I've had children read this book and come and thank me for writing it, as they were children who suffered through the pain of being children of divorced parents. And I wasn't even expecting that. And so it can be applied to a person who's lost their business, lost their home, who's basically just lost something significant and left a gaping hole. This is a story that is relatable regardless of your situation. And particularly with relationships, it's helpful for those who are single and giving you tips on what to look for in the spouse that is compatible for you. It is helpful to people who's already married to basically tell you or be a guide to help you keep your marriage alive. To people who have stayed married and who are separated, and people who were divorced, but also, like you said, people who've had other losses in their life that has caused trauma. And the trauma is the part that you still have to deal with even after the divorce or the loss of a home or the loss of a loved one or a business has now happened. You still got to get up and get through life. And so the 5 steps that I offer for what I did was, number one, identification. I had to come to grips with my pain and my situation. Secondly, recognition. I had to openly recognize I'm in a terrible relationship and this has to end. Thirdly, analysis. I had to analyze where we went wrong, how, and why. Fourth, I had to reevaluate. So reevaluation is the 4th step. And the 5th is action. When you are trying to rediscover who you are, these are the 5 steps that I offer to get you through the rediscovery process, and that can help you navigate through a painful loss and, in this case, a painful divorce. And so I thank you for asking such a prolific question, and I totally agree that it's relatable to anybody's situation. It's also a book of hope. I'm remarried, and my second husband and I, we are totally in love, and it's a totally different experience. And if God could send me a second spouse and do it again and do it better, he certainly can. He has no respect of persons, and he can do it for anyone, whether it's a marriage or a situation that you are trying to repair coming out of a traumatic loss in your life.
Been talking to Dr. Pepper Bonay-Martin here on Refocus Radio, talking about her book, I'm Married, But I Feel Like I'm Single, 5 Steps to Successfully Navigate a Painful Divorce. Go to her website, pepperbonaymartin.net. And there's an interesting quote I'll like to get your feedback on, and it is something to do with pain. And it's by Fulton J. Singh. And it says, sometimes the only way the good Lord can get into some hearts is to break them. And
agreed.
When that situation happened or that circumstance happened in your life, what was the repairing process like? And when you finally saw the end result of that process that you had to go through, what was the main thing you learned from that experience?
Wow. Such great, tremendous questions. I would say that I had felt so broken, but the biggest thing for me, because I had such intense trust issues, Shamaya, by being a victim of sexual abuse and dealing with the ongoing pain of the rejection of my dad, my world was lit up when I was with somebody that I finally had let my hair down, that I could trust. And we had such great times together, and it had developed such strong and powerful intimacy that our love felt like it was love in 3D. And to finally get to that place of peace with a man that did not, at the time that I'm thinking, did not do anything to do harm to me, and then to see harm being done, I was beyond devastated, because now my world, my greatest fear I'm facing it. And he had cheated on me multiple times. And, I was so devastated that I was already so broken. By the time I went through that, I had hit such rock bottom that I got to a point where getting up was easy, if that makes sense. I had hit rock bottom on the inside. I had no fight left. I had no reason, no rhyme or reason as to what had happened to my life and how I had gotten here, a person where there was so much promise and so much investment put into me and into my education, and there was high expectations from my extended family for me, and I felt like an intense failure. And I knew that I had to survive, and so I was at a point where I was so bad off that I felt like anything better was progress. And so, yes, I felt like I was at the point where God had me where it was undeniable that I was in a situation where it was just me and him. And if he did not get me out, I wasn't having success. I wasn't getting out. I needed an emotional and a social miracle. I was consumed by trauma, and I was consumed by death and wanting to die. That was not the purpose that God had for me. Neither was it his will. And so being pushed into a position where it was obvious that I needed to live, and I didn't want to, I had to get up. So success was, I was in a situation whereby my back was up against the wall and I had to get out. And so any progress from rock bottom is improvement. And it taught me how to be grateful every day. And then it became where I was showing gratitude and openly thanking God hourly, just to get through the day. And when you get to that point and you have an epiphany of what's important and you realize you need God to be able to bear the day, and everything is basic. It's no longer about what kind of house, what kind of car, the physical and all of the tangible things that we sometimes get caught up in is no longer important. When you get back to the basics, yes, you begin to shift and you begin to now say, okay, this is a battle. This is an intense battle. I felt like I was war-torn, but I needed God to strengthen me moment by moment. Sometimes was the experience as I was going through that journey of recovery to basically get back to point zero. And then once I got back to ground zero, I can go up from there. But I had gone below zero, way below. And that's a terrible place. I don't ever want to go back there again. But I also want to keep my focus, and I remember it well. And I remember the pain from that time in my life so that it can keep me humble, keep me grounded, and keep me focused on what's important, and to live a life of victory with my character intact and with understanding whose I am and what my purpose is, and being deliberate about living that out every day.
Listen to I Am Focused Radio, talking to Dr. Pepper Bonay-Martin, author, speaker, educator, and pastor, and talking about her book, I'm Married, But I Feel Like I'm Single, 5 Steps to Successfully Navigate a Painful Divorce. You can go to her website, pepperbonaymartin.net. I want to say thank you for being on the show today. What can the audience do if they want to connect with you? What's the best way they can do that?
They can find me. You can just Google me. I'm on all of the social media platforms. The website, pepperbonaymartin.net, will give you ways that you can connect to me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you also call 877-698-DACC. That's 877-698-3422 or DACC extension 3. And so I just want to say thank you so much for having me on tonight. And I always cherish the moments that I am blessed to have to become a living testimony of what it looks like on the other side of going through. And I pray that what I had to say was meaningful to someone listening in your audience.
You can get her book, once again, I'm Married, But I Feel Like I'm Single, 5 Steps to Successfully Navigate a Painful Divorce. Go to her website, pepperbonaymartin.net. Once again, I want to say thank you, Dr. Pepper Bonay-Martin, for being on the show, taking time in your schedule, talking to us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.